All right, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana is set to deliver the budget on the 22nd of February next week, Wednesday. Let's look ahead with Annabel Bishop, who's the Chief Economist at Investec. Very good afternoon to you. Thanks for your time on SABC News this afternoon. So what are the major risks that are affecting South Africa's economic growth, and what are you hoping to see from the Minister's budget speech next week?
Yes, hi, thank you very much. Look, we are a bit concerned about slower forecasts on the economy. So if you're going to revise down the GDP growth forecasts this year and next year quite steeply, as our Reserve Bank did recently, because of the slower electricity production in South Africa, we are worried we're going to see higher debt and deficit ratios. And of course, that's negative from a credit rating perspective.
When it comes to our taxes, last year we saw, because of commodity prices, among other things, an increase in tax revenue. The plan from government was also to broaden the tax base using incentives. Have those incentives to grow employment worked in the last year?
You know, I think incentives get disrupted when you have unexpected events. And of course, you know, load shedding is very damaging to economic growth and economic growth creation. Even if you are putting in incentives to stimulate employment in the industry, for example, if the industry itself is unable to have the level of production it needs, if it can't generate goods or services, sell them and get money to pay salaries, then that itself impedes employment.
Yeah. When it comes to tax, let's stay with that. There was a focus, quite a large focus in the speech last year on tax collection, a unit being announced focusing on high net worth individuals, saying that there's going to be, you know, really a drive to make sure that people don't try and escape their responsibilities. On the other hand, there's also a refrain that the government and SARS may tax citizens too much. There's a squeeze on the tax base. Is that valid?
I think, you know, you do always get individuals, and they can be from all income levels in society, who try and avoid or evade paying tax. And of course, that is harmful to government finances, to tax collection. It's something that National Treasury is seeking, SARS is seeking to get significantly involved in more in the repair of SARS to increase our tax collection. And, you know, that's a huge worry for us. I do think, however, that South Africa is very highly taxed if you compare it to other countries around the world, other emerging market countries around the world. Just been load shed, sorry about the darkness. And you can obviously see that, you know, we find ourselves in a situation, you know, where that has impacted our tax revenue over the past few years, and we're hoping to get it back up under Edward Kieswetter to where it was, you know, before we obviously had the hollowing out at SARS.
Do you think that government's approach to promoting economic growth is adequate, and if not, what needs to change? And I think it's so interesting that the electricity sector is really the thing that's dragging growth down the most, and you just got load shed as we were speaking.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. You broke up quite a bit.
Right.
Maybe it was the load shedding. Could you just repeat the question?
Yeah, so my question was around the South African government and what they're doing to try and promote economic growth. Is what they're doing adequate? What needs to be done in order to grow the economy, besides, of course, the very obvious, which is to deal with the electricity crisis that we're facing in South Africa?
Well, we're also suffering as well from insufficient capacity on our rails and our ports. So, you know, we are not getting as much as we could from a bulk goods export out of the country. If you think about coal, for example, or any large bulky products that we export. And of course, as well, that negatively impacts the mining sector. Also, of course, as well, you know, food industry, processed food, for example. So those are all problematic areas. And of course, as well, water shortages. Government needs to improve the productive services that it yields to the economy, or the goods, you know, whether it's water, electricity, of course, ports and railways, to allow business to function better, but also, of course, as well, to reduce red tape and regulatory burdens. And that is something that government still needs to also make big inroads on as well.
Something that government needs to deal with is the crisis of inequality and unemployment in the country. There have been talks about a basic income grant. There have been talks about making sure that social security is perhaps widened in South Africa, because if it's not, there's concerns that there may be unrest, civil unrest in South Africa, and just more economic challenges. What do you expect the Finance Minister to speak about when it comes to social security in South Africa?
I think they will expand it. I think the social distress relief grant is going to become permanent in South Africa, and I think that's very important. I think they also as well have been discussing the institution of a basic income grant as well for unemployed adults for quite a significant period. They have obviously been looking at examples around the world, and I think they're also looking to link it to work seeking, but we don't know for sure yet, and we'll have to wait for the finer details. But the best thing that could happen for South African economy would just to see substantially faster growth, like we saw under the Thabo Mbeki years, when we saw economic growth of 5 to 6%, and we saw unemployment drop down in South Africa to 21% from above 30%. And obviously, if we'd managed to keep Thabo Mbeki on for another 10 years, we would have seen unemployment drop down towards 11%. So that's really what's needed most for the South African economy: good, strong governance, a lack of corruption, a lack of looting, a lack of state capture. Unfortunately, we're now in a period where we're repairing the damage that was done over the past decade of state capture, looting, corruption. We're still finding instances of it, and it takes a long time to repair that before you could actually return to the good governance years under Thabo Mbeki, for example.
Annabel Bishop, Chief Economist at Investec, just joining us as we take a look ahead at what may come from the Finance Minister's speech come Wednesday on SABC News. We'll have rolling coverage of that for you.